Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Well, Mr. Gboye Leyinmu joins us now. He's a legal practitioner. Thank you for coming on this morning, sir.
Thank you very much indeed for inviting me.
Well, we're just looking at the modalities for this conference. Well, yes, indeed, quite a number of people wanted to go on. You have others who think otherwise. But in the meantime, the National Council of State have given their nod to this one. Let's go ahead and have it, they say. And 3 months, tentatively, and the modalities all spelled out there. You've read through and gone through some of these things. What are your thoughts about it?
Well, to be quite frank with you, one didn't expect the National Council of State to do no less.
Oh, okay.
Because I really don't want to be to affront them, but really, the Council of State, to all intents, from what we've seen, is more or less like a rubber stamp, because most of the consensus will have been agreed to even prior to the meeting, and I think they just come there really more or less to endorse what is happening. But more importantly, I think that the idea of the national conference at this time, with all respect to the presidency, I think is ill thought through. I think it's a product of insufficient thought and consideration, and I think that it's likely to produce more confusion.
Tell us about it. Why?
Why?
Do you think so?
Because, you see, if it was a well thought out idea from the beginning, don't forget that President Jonathan didn't run on his own steam until 2011. If it was something that he really had in mind and he had deliberated upon carefully, it would have been an object of campaign in 2011. Now, it seems to me that his administration has run into stormy weather, and the idea of a national conference seems to me to be one idea to overcome the storm. And so really, what we're getting is, if you like, patchwork to ensure that he or his administration gets the desired result.
Even if that were the case, I mean, let's assume without considering that, what is wrong with that?
Well, politically, basically, there's nothing wrong with it. However, what concerns me and worries me is that because it is not an idea that has been thought through well, you now produce what is likely to create more confusion in the middle of way. Don't forget that this idea only came up towards the end of last year.
To have a national conference?
Yes. The idea to have a conference had always been there. This is something that had been there since before 1999.
And nobody wanted to do it.
Well, you see, and you have to ask yourself the question, why have people been clamoring for a national conference? Because of the structural imbalance within the federation, because of the need to devolve powers to the states and the regions, because there are certain recurring national questions, about whether, if you're a Nigerian, where your residence counts or is your indigenship that will determine whether you are going to hold certain positions or run for certain offices, and so on and so forth. Whether the federal character or affirmative action, as the Americans call it, is something that we should continue to practice, and as indeed how we practice it, it has been good for us, and so on and so forth. Resource control and various other recurring national questions are the reasons why people have been clamoring for national
conference.
Yes.
So now it is coming. I mean, because you're saying that the president is using it to show up popularity. Is that the meaning?
Well, not so much as to shore up popularity. Don't get me wrong. I say, with respect to the presidency, that the president, his administration, ran into stormy waters.
What is the stormy waters?
Well, the insecurity, the challenges that is getting from all the political parties, especially the APC, his, whether you like it or not, declining popularity because people perceive him as not living up to his electoral promises. And don't forget that in politics, perception is very important than, in fact, the reality. So combined, when you put all this together, it seems to me that an election for 2015 is approaching. It seems to me that it was...
what is the confusion? Before I ask you one major question, but what is the confusion you think this is going to cause?
First of all, it is unclear who will endorse the product of the discussion at the national conference. Will it be subject to a referendum when in fact people argue that there is already a sovereignty in place in terms of the National Assembly? Will the National Assembly allow itself to be sidelined or its position to be, or authority to be usurped? And so, you know, and don't forget that members of the National Assembly are politicians, and wily politicians for that matter.
That's confusion one for you, because you seem to be numbering them.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's confusion number one. Then confusion number two is that the representation itself. Don't forget that I perceive at any rate that, largely speaking, the hope was that the national conference will be, if you like, an ethnic gathering to thrash out once and for all how we ought to run the country and live in peace. Whether you like it or not, even the so-called Boko Haram insurrection is a product of being dissatisfied with the status quo as it is. So we were hoping that when the ethnic nationalities gather, you know, these issues will come up and they will be addressed consensually, hopefully, and that we won't have another one for a while.
So that's confusion number two.
That's confusion number two, because what you really do have now is more or less a representation of a broad spectrum of the society. So that's confusion number two. So the emphasis in this national conference is no longer on the national or on the ethnic nationalities, but more or less on the broad spectrum of the society. Now that's confusion number two. Confusion number three, to my mind, is that you're timing this conference, and it's as if it's going to coincide with pre-election campaign for 2015. Now, that's going to whip up a great deal of passion.
No, how is that? Because campaigns, primaries get to start October.
Yes.
And then this conference holds in 3 months.
Yes.
That won't be up till October.
Well, you see, we have to address these things realistically. People are bound to have at the back of their mind the bid for power. All right? And you'll be surprised. And I predict that even many of your so-called delegates to the national conference will be eyeing various positions. Now something is throwing them up onto the national stage.
I'll be very, very happy for us to go through the composition of these delegates, proposed composition of the delegates, because we're looking at the number of women, the number of youth, the number that makes up political class. But you were talking about the president's intention towards this. Don't you think we would have been able to convoke this before now if we had settled with the nomenclature? Remember, it's not as if he was trying to make this look like his electioneering bargain. We had always talked about the need for us to talk, but the nomenclature then was always in dispute. We've always talked about sovereign national conference until perhaps maybe Nigerians woke up someday and said, if this is what is giving us this headache, why don't we take it out? And they finally agreed that, well, the word sovereign or sovereignty should be removed for them to move ahead.
Well, point is that whatever the presidency may have said or have not said, the reality is that, you know, the people, there's no doubt that there's a great deal of agitation, and quite candidly, the agitation, the more recent agitations have been as a result of bad governance, let's face it.
Yeah, but don't
I like
also
the word,
forget
the agitation.
Yes.
Yeah, because
From where?
Nigerians have been talking about this conference for a long time.
Yes.
On why we should have a conference.
Yes.
And then this conference comes up, and then some of the same people who wanted it suddenly say, no, we don't want it, we suspect it.
That's right. You see, because you see, when you're going to have a national conference, by whatever name you address it, it presupposes that there's going to be a measure or a large measure, indeed, of candor, sincerity, open-mindedness, you know, commitment, and those things. And it presupposes that it's not going to be partisan, all right? And so when you have to bend over backwards to persuade people that you're really sincere about it, so you're candid about it.
Is it until they are the ones that will organize it, that's when it becomes sincere?
No. You see, whoever it is that is mooting the idea, and in this case, the administration of President Jonathan, you know, and as I said before, perception is very important in politics. If people perceive you as not being sincere, I don't care, you may be as transparent as whatever. But if people perceive that this is the case, that you're not being sincere, then there's going to be a conclusion that you're not sincere.
Speaking about that same perception, I mean, I find a fairly renewal group, some people thought were also against this conference. I mean, we had Mr. Gboye here who said, no, well, yeah, well, they may have their views, but let's take advantage of the moment and turn it to a good one.
Chamberlain, you see, because, you know, in this country, pardon the use of the expression, we're noisy, we're clamorous, we're, you know, name it. There will be 160 million views on the matter of the national conference, and people will, you know, be loud about it. But the groups that are truly influential within the polity or the community are those views that ought to matter.
Really?
Yes, because at the end of the day, those are the, if you like, the cement that will glue the community together. You see, if you put about 500 people, those are the number of delegates for the national conference.
492.
More
precisely.
Yes, 500, yes. You put about 492 people together.
Yes.
Representing various interests. You know, to get a consensus, you expect
75%.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps more than that. You know, to really move it forward. You know, you will be surprised that politicians in the, you know, the traditional hue of members of the National Assembly, of their hangers-on, or and so on and so forth, of their stringers, and what have you, will also be making their own input.
I beg your pardon for buttoning
yes,
again,
the
but
political parties and what have you.